Tonight, I have the honor and privilege of introducing to you Sandra Fluke. Sandra, will you please join me at the podium? Slut is a word that some people use to silence and shame women. It was the term conservative radio show host Rush Limbaugh used over and over on his show to describe Georgetown University law student Sandra Fluke. He targeted her because she testified before the House Democratic Steering and Policy Committee on the need for people to have access to contraception, including at institutions with moral objections to contraception. Instead of silencing Sandra, Limbaugh's out-of-line comments sparked a national debate, and Fluke was given an even larger platform from which to advocate for access to contraceptives, giving interviews for the New York Times, Washington Post, Time, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, and CBS television. Access to contraception is an area of expertise for Fluke, as she'd been advocating for this as co-president of the Georgetown chapter of Law Students for Reproductive Justice at Georgetown University, where she is finishing her law degree in public interest law. While she is passionate about women's reproductive health, she's also had an impact in the related fields of domestic violence and human trafficking. Fluke created and led the Program Evaluation Initiative for Sanctuary for Families in New York City, ensuring high-quality services to victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. She served on the Manhattan Borough President's Task Force on Domestic Violence and co-founded the New York statewide Coalition for Fair Access to Family Court, which successfully lobbied for legislation allowing LGBTQ, teen, and other victims of intimate partner violence to access civil orders of protection. As the 2010 recipient of the Women Lawyers Association of Los Angeles Fran Kendall Public Interest Grant, she researched, wrote, and produced an instructional film on how to apply for a domestic violence restraining order in pro per. She has also worked with numerous nonprofits, including the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, Polaris Project, Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County, Break the Cycle, and then Now Legal Defense and Education Fund. In recent years, while in law school, Fluke has represented numerous victims of domestic violence and human trafficking and has engaged in human rights advocacy in Kenya on behalf of child victims of domestic human trafficking there. Fluke double majored in policy analysis and management and feminist, gender, and sexuality studies at Cornell University, where she graduated in 2003. Sandra Fluke, your commitment to taking a stand for human rights has inspired me to use my skills and creativity to create positive change in my community. It is with great admiration for your work that the National Conference for College Women Student Leaders, organizers, and attendees, including myself, honor and recognize you as a 2012 Woman of Distinction.
At first, when I was listening to the introduction, I thought, why is a scientist introducing me? I don't know if that's the right fit. And then she started her remarks by yelling slut, and I thought, oh, she's my kind of woman. It was a personality-based choice, I suppose. I'd like to thank the AAUW and NASPA for having me here. I'm very excited to be at what I now know is, and now I'm going to get it wrong, Nick Whistle. And please don't interpret my late arrival as any indication of my lack of excitement. I was on a delayed flight from Los Angeles, so it's been a long travel day that didn't work out as planned. But I'm happy to be here. And I am incredibly honored to be chosen as a woman of distinction this evening, and inspired and very, very humbled by my fellow honorees. Going last in this program is quite a task, especially when you've been asked to convey words of wisdom and life lessons. I'm 31. So rather than conveying anything that I will attempt to label as wisdom, I thought that what I would share with all of you are some of the things that I've been struggling with over the last few months, and what I try to tell myself to help myself through it, and perhaps it will be helpful to all of you. And if you have an even better solution, come find me after the program. So at many points over the last few months, I have thought to myself that what I did when I testified before a congressional committee regarding women's access to holistic reproductive health care was not especially difficult or something that took much to do, that many, many women could have done this, because I firmly believe that many women believe what I said in front of the committee, that many of us could have gone there and talked about why these policies affect us, affect our friends, and that we all could have told the types of stories that I was telling that day. So there's a way in which I don't feel that it was something unique or special or to be honored for. But I've actually thought more about it, and I've realized that while that is true, and I firmly believe that we can all do this, there is something more to it. First of all, there's the educational privilege that I have and that all of us in this room have that allowed me to speak that day. Just by virtue of being women who have had the opportunity to go to college, to receive a degree, or be on the path to a degree, we have gain skills and tools that we may not realize, but that many other women do not have the opportunity to access. My father reminds me of this regularly when he tells me, and my dad didn't have the chance to go to college, and he says to me that my sister and I could argue circles around him. And it reminds me that we did gain these tools in college, but what my dad doesn't realize is that my best argumentation training was when I was a teenager against him. And I suppose that given the $200,000 worth of debt I now have, I should acknowledge that law school was some part of the training. And for those of you who are planning to go to law school, it was definitely part of the training. But I didn't testify that res ipsa loquitur is an inference regarding the proximate cause in a negligent tort suit. That would have taken law school to do. I testified about why these are policies that are important to women. And I know that this is something that many of the women in this room could talk about, and talk about passionately, because I've seen college women on our campuses organizing about these issues, and you all are fierce. I believe Georgetown is in the room. I've seen this at Cornell when I was an undergraduate and at Georgetown, and I am amazed by the passion and the ability that all of you bring to this. And because you have these abilities, I believe that we all have a responsibility to take these types of steps, to use the tools we've been given, to use what we know and what we can do with our voices to speak on behalf of others who need us in whatever way, whether it was a woman who doesn't have the opportunity to gain this educational privilege that we now have, or whether it's our fellow sisters on our campuses who may be struggling under a lack of insurance coverage, for example. But it's more than just this privilege and this responsibility that took me to Capitol Hill that day. I realized that it's about opportunity as well. And I do want to be clear that it will not necessarily go the way it went for me if all of you start to speak out, and you'll probably be pleased about parts of that. Some of those opportunities are not things that I would wish upon any of you. But some of those opportunities are things that I did get by pushing for them and by pushing myself to not not take the easy path, and keep going when it wasn't that easy to keep going always. And some of those times were the night before the press conference that started all of this, when I thought to myself, I am going to fail law school if I don't stop doing this activism crap. And I cannot stay up all night and write this speech and get up there and give an impassioned speech, and they are going to laugh at me, and all of the things that run through our heads. And I thought about those things when I was sitting in the hallway outside of the conference room the first day that I was supposed to testify, and I mean literally sitting on the floor because I wasn't going to be allowed to testify, so I didn't have an assigned seat. So I had to get there several hours in advance in order to get into the room. So as I was sitting on the floor thinking, am I really going to pick a fight with the Republican Party? Really? This is what I'm doing on this Thursday morning? Maybe I should be in immigration class. At those types of moments, and yesterday when I was studying for the bar exam, California is a particularly hard bar exam, and I literally crawled into my fiance's lap as he was sitting on the couch and said, I can't do this, I can't do this, I cannot take the bar exam, I cannot get ready for this, I cannot do this while maintaining an activist platform at the same time, I just can't, I give up. And he sort of does what he always does when I have these kinds of moments. He smiled and, made me feel better for a few moments, and then gave me the space to tell myself what I always have to tell myself to get myself out of that space, and what I'm about to tell all of you, which is that you have to go on and take the bar exam, Sandra, because it will allow you to fight better for those women who you care passionately about, that you have to push through whatever that moment is that's making you want to run away and hide at that moment. Keep pushing through it, because you have a responsibility. You have a privilege, an educational privilege, and any number of other types of privilege, and because you have that privilege, you have a responsibility to use it for those who need you and who don't have that privilege. And I know some of you may be thinking this is all well and good because you have a social justice career plan, Sandra. I want to do something else with my life. I want to do something that's not about social justice. Well, tough. That just means you have 2 jobs. So you can have whatever day job you want, but I firmly believe that we all have this responsibility in addition. And if you'd like to just switch to a social justice career as a result of the remarks you've heard from everyone this evening, I think that'll be just fine too. No one will blame you for taking the easy route. But we have this responsibility to push ourselves through those moments of fear, to create those opportunities in order for us to have an impact, and to use those opportunities to fight for others. Frankly, it's the payment due in exchange for the education that we have, and it's the payment due in exchange for the privilege we have. And it is our moral responsibility as young leaders. And I promise all of you that I will continue to push through, at least until July, until the end of the bar exam. And I hope that all of you will as well. I'm looking forward to hearing about the amazing things that all of the women in this room are going to do.